Okay, so now let's start to understand how this graph editor works. So if you see over here, there are three animations over here, and I have applied normal keyframe animation on x-axis. If you see, they are only animating on x-axis. Now we will try to understand how this graph editor works. Now if I select this second one, and if I select this keyframes, right click, keyframe assistance, and ease in ease out, from name itself you can understand it will apply ease in ease out over here. If I hide this one and if I compare this two animation, in first animation their speed is constant. Like if you see over here, you cannot see any change in the speed over here. Even if you see the distance between this extra echoes are same. As if I enable this one, if you see the distance between these echoes are changing, like at this point they are very close and at this point they are very far from each other. So what does it means? That this animation is starting very slowly, that's why the distance between these echoes are very less, but as it goes forward you can see the distance between these echoes are very high because the speed is high. Similarly, as it goes to end, the distance between these echoes are very less because speed becomes slow. Okay, same procedure over here. In this portion the distance between this echo is high because the speed is high, and at this last the speed is becoming very less. So how this actually works? So for that we need to understand the graph editor. Okay, so to enable the graph editors, I need to select those keyframe, and over here you will get this option called graph editor. If you click on it, right now we are getting this two mountains like structure. This is basically a speed graph, but initially we will see what this value graph. So if I right click and choose edit value graph, I'm gonna get this kind of graph. Now obviously the x line is representative of x direction and y line is y direction. Okay, but you cannot see the any effect on y over here because this is not animating in y direction. That's why the y line is linear and x line is something like this. Okay, if I select this graph and by holding control, if I click on it to remove ease in ease out, and now if I see this, I'll get this straight line. Okay, but if I select this and if I hit F9, and I'll get this kind of structure. So why is it that? Let's see. I'm going to select this, and by holding control I'm going to remove it. Okay, and I'll select this, right click, and I'll choose separate dimension as well, and I'll hide this extra one. Okay, so now what is there? That there are two keyframes, one is for x position and one keyframe or for y position. Okay, if I select this y position, if I go to the graph, there is no change in y position, but if I select this x, I'll get this kind of graph because in y position there is no change. That's why the graph is not editing. So if I go to the graph editor and I can select this and I can move this over here like this. So now if you see, we are still not getting anything. Okay, because there is no change in position. But if I go over here, for example, if I select this and over here if I change the value, and now if I open this graph, I'll get this kind of structure because now the graph is changing because the value of y is also changing. Okay, so that's how it works. So this is what we call value graph. If I select this x position, if I go over here, this is basically saying the value. For example, if you click over here, not click, but if you move your mouse pointer over here, you can see the text shape layer to x position, and at this timeline the x position is 294.61 pixels. As it goes forward, as you guys can see, the value is increasing like this. Okay, now if I select this and if I hit F9 over here, and now if I go to the graph editor, what is this saying? That the x position initially the value is changing slowly because, as I said, the value is changing slowly because ease in ease out has been applied, and as it goes in the middle, the value is changing linear in format, like constant change in value. That's why the line is straight. As the animation goes at ends, the value is changing a little bit slowly. That's why if you see over here, at this point the distance between these echoes are similar, but at this point the distance between these echoes are very close to each other. Similarly, if you go over here, you can see the difference between this and this. Okay, so this is how this value graph editor works. Now I can tweak this graph. For example, I can select this, and with the help of this handle I can adjust the value graph, so it will adjust the speed as well. For example, if I select this graph and if I suppose adjust it like this, so what is representing that the value of this one is going to increase it immediately. So that's why if you see this, the distance between these echoes are too much, and as it goes over here the distance between this is very less. Similarly, if I go over here, if I select this and if I select this and if I move this over here like this, we are getting this kind of structure like this. So what is this representative? The graph value goes immediately high like this, and at this point it becomes low. Similarly, from this it becomes a very slow, and as it goes over here it becomes really high. Okay, so this is how you can adjust the value graph over here. But if you know, this is just a adjustment of value. Similarly, you can adjust the speed as well. For example, let's hit Ctrl Z and we will keep it as it is. Now instead of value graph, I'll right click and I'll choose edit speed graph. So edit speed graph is quite different than value graph, but it's easy to understand as compared to value graph, specifically for me. So if I right click and choose edit speed graph, for name itself they are saying that it is representative of the speed of your animation. For example, if you go to the start, obviously my ball is not moving, then obviously the speed of this is going to be 0. That's why if you see the reading over here, it's 0 per second. If I move my mouse pointer over here like this, as you guys can see, this value is increasing like 1249.54 pixels per second, and at this point the velocity or speed is becoming the constant. That's why at this point, if you see, the line is quite straight, and again as it goes over here the value is going downwards, which means they are saying the speed is becoming less. Similarly, if you go from here, as you guys can see, the speed is changing really high like this, and at this point the speed becoming constant. Similarly, as it goes over here, the speed again becoming 0 like this. So this is how the speed graph works. And if I select this and if I select this, for example, I can handle the adjust like this and like this. So now if you see what it represents, actually from 0 the speed is changing, but it's changing really slow as compared to our initial animation. So that's why if you see at this point the distance between these one are very less, and as this point this ball is achieving the maximum speed of this. So that's why if you see over here the distance between this ball is very high, and as it goes forward the speed becoming again slow. That's why at this point the distance between these echoes are very less. Similarly, you can select this, move this handle over here, and you can move this handle over here like this. Again you will get same results, because at this point they are achieving maximum velocity. That's why the distance between these echoes as well is very high, and at this point they are starting very slowly. That's why the distance between this is very less. Okay, so this is how the speed graph works. Now we will understand this concept with the help of our bouncing ball animation. Okay, so I'll go over here and I'll try to create one animation. So let's create one ellipse. I'll press Ctrl Alt O. I'll go to the graph editor, align it horizontally, align vertically. I'll press P for position, right click, and I'll choose separate dimension. Initial Y position, I'm gonna move this over here like this. I'll create one keyframe. Then I'll go to 1 second and I'm going to bring this over here. Similarly, I'll go few frame forward. I'll create another keyframe on Y, and in middle of that I'm going to move this over here and select those keyframe, and I'll hit F9. Okay, so if you see this animation, we are gonna get something like this. Now let's select this and change the exposition over here. I'm not applying any keyframe over here, I'm just changing the exposition. I'll select this and I'll hit Ctrl D. I'll press P and I'm going to change the exposition over here. Now why I created duplicate, I'm going to adjust this one with the help of value graph and this one with the speed graph. The result is going to be the same, but you can with the help of this example you can understand that which graph you should use to animate according to your needs. Okay, whichever is suitable for you, you can use that. Generally I use speed graph, but after this one you can decide which graph you should edit and which is easy for you. Okay, so I'm going to start with this one, and I'm going to change the color of this one to yellow because I'm going to choose value graph for it. Now if you know the bouncing ball principle is that before whenever this ball is going to reach the ground, the speed should become very fast, and as it goes up the speed becomes very fast, and it becomes low and then becomes fast again. Okay, so let's select this and go to the graph editor, right click, and I'm going to choose edit value graph. Okay, so obviously because we have applied ease in ease out, let's select this Y over here, and as it comes near to the ground, the initial speed should be very less, and as it goes over here the speed should be high. So let's zoom in a little bit. I'm sorry, like this. Let's adjust this a little bit, like this. Okay, this much looks good to me. Now I'm going to select this handle and I'll adjust it like this. Okay, so what it represents, that initial the position is changing very slow like this, and as it comes near the ground, let's add this one, as it comes towards the ground, it becomes very fast. So if you see, we'll get something like this. And similarly, after the touching the ground, it should go upward a little bit fast. So I'll select this and I'm going to bring this handle over here in such a way that if you see, the position is changing very fast like this. Okay, and as it goes forward, the position should change slowly, and at the end it should become fast. So let's select this and let's try to adjust the graph like this. Okay, similarly make sure to select this and adjust in proper way like this. Okay, so we are getting this kind of curve over here like this. Okay, so if you see this, now we are getting something like this. So now if I hit play, I'll get this kind of bouncing ball animation. Now we will adjust this one with the help of speed graph. So let's select this and let's go to the graph editor, right click, and make sure to choose edit speed graph. Now obviously the initially speed should be 0, so I am going to select this, and by holding shift I'm going to move this handle over here, and I'm going to move this handle over here like this. So what this represents, that initial speed is 0 pixels per second. As it goes further, the animation is getting the velocity high, and at the end of this the speed becomes very fast. So if you see, we are getting something like this. Then again, after touching the ground, the speed should be high. So I'll select this, I'll move this handle over here, and I'll move this handle over here, so it becomes fast after bouncing. Similarly, I'll select this, hold shift, and I'll move this handle over here, and I'll move this handle over here. So what this represents is that initially the speed is 0, and this speed is increasing very slow, and whenever the ball is about to touch the ground, the speed becomes high. After the touching the ground, the speed becomes very high like this, and it becomes very slow. Then again, after reaching the maximum height after the bounce, the speed becomes slow and then again becomes fast. So now if you compare these two animations, we are getting pretty much same results. Okay, but the thing is that if you see the value graph over here, it's quite difficult to understand and even if you see properly, it looks a little bit complex. Okay, but if you see the speed graph over here, it's quite easy to understand the logic of speed as compared to values. Okay, so I generally prefer to use speed graph, not value graph, but if you are familiar or if you are comfortable with the value graph, you can use that as well. Generally I prefer to use speed graph because for me it's very easy, and value graph sometimes becomes complicated, and even if you see my tutorials, most of the time I prefer to use speed graph only because it's easy to understand. So this is the concepts of graph editors in After Effects.